Today we're going to be talking about cut and come again flowers and why they are the easiest cut flowers to grow and can also be the most profitable flowers from your garden. And if you don't think so, it might be because you're doing it wrong. Welcome to Learn Cut Flower Growing. Whether you are an inspiring green thumb, a busy mompreneur, or simply seeking a passion, you are in the right place. If I had to do it all over again, knowing what I know now, I would do it smarter. And that's what I'm sharing here. I want to take years off your learning and help you bloom with confidence in your garden. Each episode, I'll share practical tips and ideas, heartfelt stories, and expert insights to help you grow and find balance in your journey. I'm Paula Rice, your cut flower farmer guide. I've been growing for 16 years, and I'm an expert in my field, literally. So grab your gardening gloves and listen to me while you work, or grab a cup of coffee and relax as you learn to manage a cut flower garden and business. So what are cut and come again flowers? Well, it's just like it sounds. You go out and you cut a bunch of flowers and they will grow more stems. And in a few days, you will come back and you can pick some more. And there's many annuals that do this, a couple of biennials, and even a few perennials that will do this for you. Scabiosa is cut and come again. Dahlias, which are a tuber. We have Nicotiana, Zinnias, Cosmos, sweet peas, calendulas, cerinthe, pansies, snapdragons, rudbeckias, and sunflowers that are branching will definitely have this tendency to be a cut and come again type of flower. And that makes them very valuable, especially for home gardeners who have a vegetable garden. You can plant a few types of these flowers in your garden and have blossoms and gifts all summer long. They're really popular to grow because over the course of the summer, you have like a long window of time that they will be producing because they're just repeat blooming. And so you plant a lot fewer successions, like one planting of zinnias that will bloom out over 3 or 4 weeks is wonderful. And you didn't have to plant like 4 succession crops of the very same plant. You know, that one is pretty much going to handle it. And you just will plant more of the same thing if you have a greater quantity that you need. So they are very high production per square foot. And that is what makes them lovely. So why am I bringing this up? Well, I've been growing for 16 years and we kind of got really big, sold to grocery stores and florist route and did all those things. And we kind of scaled back down. And in that journey of going all the way up and growing lots and lots, 4 or 5 acres worth of flowers back down, I've had some experience and I can see on the other side why some people might think that cut and come again flowers just didn't work for them. And I've been online watching where we have some growers who they're starting to talk out loud and help educate other growers about how they grow. And they were saying, cut and come again flowers just don't work for me. And they would plant more successions because eventually the flowers were just going to get ugly and they weren't able to get a beautiful stem or a harvest from that. And I thought about that. I'm like, that just does not make sense to me. That does not make sense to me. And I think I know what is going on. And I did pipe back. I was like, hey, did you get blight in there? Because if the foliage is terrible, well, then that's not going to do you any good. Or if you get powder and mildew in them. And they had replied that, nope, it's just it just doesn't work for them. But I know what is going on. And you do not need extra succession plantings. What happens is if you are a new grower, a lot of times you don't necessarily have the market to sell all of your flowers. And so I get it. It is kind of a waste of time if you don't have orders for your flowers to go out and pick the flowers, and just hold on to them or take more than what you need. But when it comes to cut and come again flowers, you absolutely have to pick them or they are going to shut down. Okay. That flower is going to get pollinated and it is going to go into seed production and your plant is going to shut down. And you have to pick them because in 2 or 3 weeks, you might have a wedding or you might have an order or maybe business is picked up. And if you didn't keep up on the crop then the plant is shutting down. And yeah, you see color out there. You're looking out there. Well, yeah, there's color out there. I can go get some. But when you actually go out there to harvest them, the blossoms are ugly because they've sat in the sun. Insects have visited them, whether they've chewed on them or they've been pollinated, and they are ugly. They are not a perfect cut flower that you can sell, but it is only because you didn't cut the flowers. So when you have cut and come again flowers, you actually have to walk down that row on a weekly basis and cut the stems. And if you don't have anything to do with them, you have to throw them just down on the ground, which is really hard to do. It's really hard to do. Maybe you can find someone that could use them and enjoy them. And really, to be honest, that's why I would always recommend having a farm stand or a farmer's market or a pop-up once a week so that you can harvest those extra flowers that you don't have sold and build up some type of a market that you could actually sell them in. Because it's definitely, I mean, I can do it. I will go down like we had. The reason I know all of this actually is we were in a grocery store. We had 9 grocery stores. We were doing bouquets in 9 grocery stores, and they finally let me have the cooler. So when we got the grocery store, I didn't get to be in the cooler, the flower cooler. I had to have my flowers outside. Well, one year they're like, Paula, you can have the cooler. Well, zinnias don't like the cooler. And I planted tons of zinnias. And so I definitely wanted the cooler because if flowers didn't sell right away, at least it gave me a window for my bouquet to sell. And so the zinnias were just dying. So I was like, okay, stop harvesting the zinnias. They're not going in the cooler. Of course, later I just actually bundled them and put them outside of the cooler because zinnias have a great vase life and they can do that and they would be sold and customers would be happy. But I said, stop picking the zinnias. Well, then I'm like, okay, we need to really get over there and pick those zinnias. And sure enough, we went over there and they're ugly. So I'm like, we'll whack these down, get these plants restarted. But they did not love getting restarted. So I know that from the years when I stayed on my zinnias and harvested them, I could come in, or any of my cut and come again flowers. I'm saying zinnias, but it's cosmos. It's any of them. If we go in and we cut them regularly, sure enough, we can come back in a few days and we can harvest them again. And that just keeps the production going until finally the plant itself is just like, I've had it. That's enough. I am done. Now that is when you would have your second succession of zinnias or cut and come again come into production. But you most certainly would not want to have 3 succession plantings to cover the 1 succession planting that should have provided you plenty of flowers for 3 or 4 weeks. Okay, that would just be such a terrible waste of time and labor and weeding to plant more just because you weren't willing to get out there and pick them, or you just didn't know. I mean, that's where we're going to go with this, is that mostly you just don't realize that you have to pick the flowers in order for them to come again. And I think a lot of cut flower growers kind of got onto this because there is a pull method, especially in all of business. You can have a pull method when you're selling something, but like in the vegetable world, they can do pull really well because if they don't, if an order comes in for carrots, they can go pick the carrot. And it's not like it's going to come again, not like a cut and come again flower. The carrot is gone. So they would not want to harvest more than what they could sell. But when it comes to cut and come again flowers, you absolutely do have to cut those stems. And if you don't have a place to sell them, you just have a big, beautiful bouquet in your house, or you throw them on the ground. And you are going to do this because in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, you may have an order where you need that flower and that plant cannot be shut down. It has to be ready to produce for you. So if you need white zinnias in 3 weeks, you need to cut the white zinnias this week so that you have them in 3 weeks. Anyways, this grower was planting more successions. She realized she didn't have the market. I'm guessing. I mean, I know that that's what has happened, is that the flowers simply just didn't get picked. And so you do what you don't see out into the future. And so, yeah, she did come back. They are ugly. And then she would tell herself, okay, yeah, I need to obviously plant 3 more successions to cover for this because this just isn't working for me. But rest assured, you do not need to do that. It is just the fact that you need to get out there and cut the stems. And you are not deadheading. Okay. You cannot do that. You cannot deadhead when you have pots around your house and you can just kind of clip off all the stuff that's been pollinated and it's dying and it will kind of pump out more. In the cut flower world, you can't just cut that head off. You actually have to take the full cut so that the next stems will sprout and come from the leaf node that you just harvested from. So you're going to cut down to a leaf node, and where you've made that cut is where 2 more stems are going to grow and come back and be there for you to harvest in a couple of weeks. So you can't just cut the top off. You'll have ugly stems. You won't even have usable stems, really. You have to take a deep cut. So when you know how to harvest them correctly and just keep up on them, you can see how when in the beginning of this, I said, oh, they might be the most profitable, and they might. If that plant is going to pump out 5 or 6 stems a week and you get to sell off of it for 4 weeks, I mean, that's a lot of money per plant, per square foot in your garden. And if you are just a home gardener with a cut flower garden, like in your vegetable garden or off on the border of your lawn, just walk out there and just deadhead them. And I always lay things on the ground and just let it mulch. That doesn't bother me at all. But if you have a small city lot, maybe you want things more tailored and more beautiful, and then you would just compost them or throw them away. Or give them away. But you do need to keep them picked so that they can keep producing and creating beautiful color in your landscape. And that rounds up my conversation about cut and come again flowers and getting everybody lined up on what you have to do to make them produce regularly. I have created kind of a checklist of some great cut and come again flowers that you can download. We'll put a link in the show notes for you to find that. Thank you so much for tuning in. Let me know what questions you have. I would love to put my 16 years of thinking into issues that you're coming across and see if I can't help you. You can't go wrong with cut and come again flowers. Even cosmos in the summer can mimic in a bouquet anemones, the windflower. They're just beautiful. You think they're so common, and yet they're really not. They can be a great substitute for some other beautiful types of flowers. So there you go, you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Be sure to rate and review our podcast. Let me know if you have any questions. I would love to hear any concerns or problems that you're having so that I can think about them and maybe answer them here on this podcast. Have a great week.